Are we on? Is we on? Or is we nay at? Whatever. Whatever to majority of the bullshit. And that's an understatement. Because as we get introduced to insight, it's now a new practice to keep saying whatever to the bullshit. And whatever to the bullshit is all the thoughts that are ours and not ours, they're more or less going through us and they're attached to us based on how we're subscribing to those thoughts, based on where we're at in our evolution and what we're getting provoked to, and then how we're subscribing to those thoughts. And now as we're subscribing to those thoughts and having different types of energy conformities, the thoughts are now more so attached to us. They're more so clung onto us. And it's not that that's right or wrong, but it just could be false, inaccurate, not true, not accurate. And since that's the case, we don't necessarily know what certain thoughts could contribute as we're prolonging the subscription with said thoughts. We don't necessarily know what direction it's taking us and how it's spiritually, chemically engineering our physical body. The thoughts are having different functions and how they're engineering our body, because the thoughts that we have, they could either take us to a certain place, mentally, physically, or spiritually, whatever, and they could also create a particular something. You might have heard the saying, quote unquote, thoughts are things, end quote. Of course they are, but there's respectively, there's a particularity behind it. Okay, there's an alarm right there. So within that particularity, we're not necessarily identifying the particularity of it, because our intelligence, respectively, as is neutrally, it's still evolving towards realizing that said process-like phenomena of energy evolution and energy transformation. What is energy evolution, energy transformation? Seeing how certain particular thoughts are different things, and there's different thoughts that are created from different things, and those different things are creating different things. And some of these different things, they're more so clung, as opposed to some other thoughts are more readily transformable. And that's the thing. We don't necessarily know that things are on a big fatty level, PHATTY, thank you very much, on a big fatty level. We don't necessarily know that majority of the things are readily transformatable, and we're not necessarily realizing how they're readily transformatable. For whatever reason, we're caught up in certain types of energetic rigidities, and those energetic rigidities, what they're creating is a particular type of density, which how certain particular thoughts created something of a dense thing, and that dense thing is not necessarily with the thought, but it still is simultaneously. And the new thing that's created from the thought, the new thing is hosting a certain type of frequency field, and that frequency field has a certain particular energy thought of a psychological energy habit. And that psychological energy habit, it's creating a frequency within the thing that was created from the thought. And the thing that was created from the thought, it was the human itself over millions of years. And the human is a conglomerate of ancient thoughts. And now the ancient thoughts are having a new procession and progression, respectively. And all these different, within the conglomerate, all the different, epicenter chakra fields, quote unquote chakra fields, end quote, within the human conglomerate template-like body, they have their own simultaneous thoughts and functions. And they don't have their own thoughts, respectively, because they're just operating per the function of what the energy center chakra is designated to operate as. So all the chakras are open, quote unquote, open host, end quote, to receive all the different thoughts. And as it's receiving all the different thoughts, it kind of like per the chakra center, it kind of filters out what is kind of irrelevant already on a natural way. But that does, even if it filters out what is irrelevant, it's still to some percentage per the chakra, it's still interfacing with the different types of thoughts that are either dense or not dense. The different types of thoughts that are either relevant or non-relevant, it's still passing through. So within all of these different thoughts, and excuse me if I look like, what do you call that? Quote unquote Beetlejuice, end quote, because we're like, what the human doesn't understand is everyone's going through all the stages and phases, but we're at a unique synergy alchemy, meaning it energetically, of course, synergy alchemy, meaning we have our own alchemical body and we're hosting all of these different themes of different energies. And those different themes of energies, the chakras could either be unhealthy or healthy, hygienic or non-hygienic, because humans could be like psychologically toxic and judging just as is, because because that's what they're caught. That's where they're at in their evolution. They're caught up in like some type of like psychological thought pattern where they don't have an alternative to how to think differently, because they've only been introduced to frequencies and thought suggestions on how to just have toxic psychology and judging. They don't know how to think differently, because what they don't realize is everything everything is more transformative than we think it is. Why do I say it like that? Because if everything is more transformative than we think, then all of this is going to pass, and everything we do, respectively, more or less, it's not really going to matter, in the sense that if it doesn't matter, then why not like do your best, why not like try to make something and like heal yourself in just a casual, natural way by kind of letting things out, being in a mood of alleviation. So within that state, in the mood of alleviation, that's the main point of this video. It's seeing what the alleviation is doing. Because what the alleviation is doing is you're letting out not necessarily good or bad energies. You're letting it out into the field. And obviously it's going to get like, there's going to be unique reflections, obviously, coming back at it. But what's happening here is when you're letting something out, when you're clearing your space, then you have more room of different energies to come in. But this is on a metaphysical tip, not necessarily like on any other tip, but like and who am I sponsoring? Press. So when you're letting stuff out, then you have more energy to come back in, and like on a basic, whether we realize it or not, level, the foundation to your very life is energy. So if the foundation to your life is energy, why wouldn't you want to not reciprocate with that, So it's about reciprocating with the foundation of your life. That's the shit I stand on, because obviously like people could just be like psychologically toxic and rigid and just be in a mood of just like, looking at the bad things for whatever reason. And as they're just looking at the bad things, they're kind of like, quote unquote, robbing themselves, end quote, of real possibilities of what could actually be of casual energetic aid and assistance to support, your general constructive evolution or not, So the thoughts, what the thoughts are doing is why you have the thoughts that you have, because over the course of your spiritual evolution, a certain part where you landed in the different travels in between and from the lives to the lives to the lives, when you travel from the lives to the lives to the lives and in between those lives, on a background level, your original chakra template, that is the memory base pretty much. And OEOS that, thank you. And within that original spiritual memory base, after we die, it's going to be carried over. And because like when you on a general neutral level, when you die, like you can't escape your what do you call that, like you're always gonna be where you left off. You can't escape your habits, you know. You're always gonna like you're like you can't escape yourself pretty much in a neutral way. And what that means is, aside, and I'm not saying, I'm not like capping, I'm not saying the tech field is good, bad, anything. I'm just saying, like, aside from the tech field, there's something that's already doing something similar to the tech field that is not the tech field, that paradoxically is hosting the tech field, and that's the spiritual database of how the humans are relating to the tech field. And beyond that, they're relating to the organic universe. So why do I say it like that? It's because the organic universe, it's the database for how the organic universe is tracking your unique human progressive evolution, for real, seriously. And as it's doing that, I'm not trying to like fearmonger anybody. I'm just saying that's what's going on. And since that's what's going on, it's like, I'm not trying to justify anything either, but like maybe on a brutal level, God is fair. We just can't, the human can't see that though. The human, it's like this, it's so complex, like it's so advanced and complex. And, you know, AI being as advanced and complex as that is, that's a reflection of the organic universe. We're just not making that connection because we're polarized for whatever being, because that's where we left off with from our original soul travel. That's where we left off at, and it's not good or bad. I'm just saying that's where we left off. And another thing I'm saying is like the human being, it doesn't have the particular intelligence on how to distinguish and how to have distinction. It does like it without particular insights, and that's just what it is. And I say it like that because if you did have that intelligence, then why have toxic psychological judgment mentalities and attitudes and perspectives? Why have toxic psychological judgment attitudes and perspectives? That's less intelligence, because if you were to have toxic psychological judgments and attitudes, then you're obviously not seeing the bigger picture. You're missing a point. You're there because you subscribe to those thoughts and those attitudes and those mannerisms based on your levels of polarities, and the different levels of polarities your energetic evolution is adapting and adopting to fragmented, detrimental, untruthful, inaccurate ways of energetic being. You know, a certain density, it has a certain frequency mood, and the density is hosting the frequency mood of inaccurate, not truth, and something that's quote unquote detrimental, hygienic ways of being, end quote. Because like, who is anybody to really judge anybody else? You were there too. You're doing the same fucking shit. You're on the same fucking path. You're doing the same progressions and patterns of every fucking other creature in the universe. So who the fuck are you to judge anybody else? But obviously that judging and constructive criticism, obviously they're different. You know, if like I create something and it sounds like shit, okay. But it's like, you could see how someone is judging you. If you're judging just out of you being, you know, like spiritually, like, you know, spiritually just kind of like your own spiritual dementia. And I'm not going to say the other, you know, R word, because I'm like my spiritual professional maturity is kind of enhancing. But if you have spiritual dementia, That's reflecting in your physical fucking body, whether you realize that or not, whether you hate me or not, whatever the fuck you think of me, that shit's fucking irrelevant. What's going on is you're creating your own physical character and evolution based on everything that you were from your original soul's conception. And if it's toxic and polarized and detriment, eventually what's going to be created is spiritual dementia within the individual human vessel. Because it's like, if you're judging me, it's because you're somewhere along your path of evolution, you have been polarized. And how you got polarized, that's kind of a different case, you know? Because I'm just trying to figure out, like, how is it that people are like could just judge in such a like a non-intelligent way? And what do I mean by that? Judge in a non-intelligent way. For someone to really like kind of like try to attempt to assassinate your character, end quote, they're gonna have to focus on one bad thing about you and ignore the whole other picture of all the good things that you're doing. And as they're doing that, and as they're focusing on one bad thing that what you're doing, and they're ignoring the whole other picture that you're doing, that's on a basic energy level, that's incompletion. So your perspective and your pursuit of intelligence is already faulty and it's incomplete. So if you're trying to transfer and try to make a case and trying to assassinate someone's character based on your perspective and perception of incompletion, then you're also like encouraging and trying to energetically replicate incompletion. And if you're doing that, you're pursuing a practice of incompletion. You're on a low-key level, you're giving that to the bigger picture universe. And as you're giving the bigger picture universe that level of incompletion, that incompletion is going to be reflected back to you, whatever the fuck you're doing, you know? Because what I'm about here is like, what I'm about here is like, how is it that like how is it that like someone could just like judge me off the bat, you know? But obviously, I understand other people. I understand people have their energetic like biases, you know? Like I understand like how people are like caught up in their own like you know, their own pretty much preferences and biases of like how people could just have like general hate for another like, you know, species, you know? And that's like who's to really say if that's like a different level of God's Maya, because God has different Mayas, you know? If we're going to speak about all this, you know, anything, then everything obviously has levels to it. And if everything has levels to it, then we have to see how God is making that a unique simulation game, and how God is also like, you know, having his nothingness and his transformation behind that, you know? Because all of this whole Earth game, I feel in my humble perspective, we're creating this whole Earth game by our collective micro free wills. Our collective micro free wills are creating this game. And you know how they say your thoughts create your reality? That's not necessarily true. We're being influenced by different levels of the bigger picture, and it's our choice to how we respond to it. That's the choice. It's how we respond, because all of that influence is moving through us. So and I'm not trying to cap, and I'm not trying to like put down anybody. I'm just saying through my research, like your thoughts don't necessarily create your reality. You don't necessarily control reality. You do on a micro level, but not in totality, because on a basic energy level, we're being influenced by collective moves. That energy of that collective concoction, it's moving through the micro vessel. We don't necessarily have total free will. I believe we have micro free will. I'm not saying that we don't have free will at all. I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm just saying like within our micro free will, we all we could do at the end of the day is play our hand the best we can, and we could either like do it in like a distorted way or not. And that sentence right there, that's a big one, because obviously there's mountains of differences between what is distorted and what's not distorted. There's mountains of difference, and that mountains of difference is like if we were to do something that's dark, that's not dark and is not necessarily bad. Dark is not necessarily distortion. It's how you're using the dark and what level of completion and accuracy or incompletion and inaccuracy. That's the mountains of difference that makes the distortion in itself. The dark isn't bad. And I said that like, years and years ago and whatever with the timestamps. I'm just saying like, I'm just trying to like, kind of balance my own shit, And this, I'll probably retitle this one, Thoughts Don't Necessarily Create Your Reality, And pressed. Because there's levels to the Maya. And it's like, it's such a keen, complex game, because as we're upgrading in the Maya, we have to have like supreme flexibility with God, because even though we level up, as we level up, it's as if like, there's still like some type of like, there's still some like, metaphysical like energy power struggle kind of going on. And it's not necessarily a power struggle, but it kind of is. And what I mean by the power struggle is, if, for example, here's the example right here. If the whole material universe was an illusion, but simultaneously it was an illusion. So the material universe, it's an illusion and it's not an illusion. So, for example, on a general example, we could say, and I'm not trying to explain what Maya is, I'm just trying to say like what Maya could be. What Maya could be is the material universe, for example, just on a general pointer. And within that general pointer, if we're still like, if you quote unquote throughout your individual progressive life, if you quote unquote break out of some compartment of Maya and then you go back in Maya, you're still in Maya, because for whatever reason, your individual soul is choosing to go in and out your responsibility. And your responsibility is going in and out. And as you're breaking in and out of Maya in a micro compartment, for whatever reason, now you're going back in Maya, the material universe. And as you're going back in Maya, the whole fucking trick of Maya and the material universe matrix is to establish it's to adapt your supreme flexibility on how you get to go in and out of it, the material universe, and how you get to go in and out of it. Somewhere along the line, your individual original soul is choosing that because it's a test. You being here is a testament of that. And since you being here is a testament of that, you're still here for a reason, because all of these like new age messages, respectively, like, I don't find any substance out of them, and I'm not trying to downplay anybody. I just feel like they're like, it just feels like they're just replicating it for some type of like media purpose. That's what it feels like to me. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but like the majority of the new age messages, it's just like, I just don't like there's like no explanation behind them. They're just like, it just seems like it's like a media pursuance, and it's just like, what the F? But anyways, respectively. But what I wanted to say was, because like people will say like, oh, this is your last time in the Matrix, but we're also like non-dual at the same time. So there's an energy hypocrisy there. Like there's all these random claims, and all these random claims are working on those many challenge claims through the paradoxes of life, and you're still here. And sometimes, like, for some reason, we're fighting against the things. No, like sometimes we're like, we're claiming to be a part of the things, and then we're fighting against them. So that's like the nuance of like this whole spiritual shit. We're claiming things, we're claiming to be a part of things, and sometimes we fight for them or we fight against them. For example, some people could say like, this is your last life in the Matrix, this is your last life ever. You're never going to come back here. But at the same time, I'm also going to adopt the spiritual message that I'm God. So if I'm God, on a metaphorical, hypothetical example from the New Age messages, if I'm this and what really is God, then why would I even have to worry about this being the last life for me? So there's just a bunch of nuances, there's a bunch of nuances that we're not taking into consideration for whatever reason. So if I'm this and I'm like, because we're like, we're misinterpreting like, the authentic foundation of Vedanta most respectively. And what I mean by that is we're convoluting and we're inflating the truths with not original accuracy, because the original accuracy is we're part and parcel of God on a neutral level. We have the micro influence of all of the Vedantic, professions, pretty much. You're this, you're that, you're this. Yeah, on a micro level, respectively. Because if you were all of that, then why are you in the dilemma and the conundrums that you're in the material reality? Somewhere along the line, your soul wants the paradoxical contrast of the material universe and the not material universe. Then why are you here? And, there's like, I think, and I said this like 2 years ago underground, like certain traditions, there's false representations generally neutrally, and there's a lack of intelligence, and there could be like, some type of unique ignorance within certain traditions. So certain traditions, they need a reset. They need a new representation, but still like obviously honoring like the authenticity and the wholeness of what the tradition could provide for. But if you want to stay true to the tradition and the religion, the culture that you had, then you have to recognize the grand change and the little changes that are happening within the universe, and how inevitably all religions will get transformed inevitably, but how certain religions have general rigidities. That's the unique micro power struggle within the earth that is just generally going on, And the ultimate power struggle it's just you versus God. Because if it's not you versus God, then what is the thing that is ultimately letting you, what is the thing that's ultimately letting you go forth? What is the thing that's ultimately giving you liberation? Because the material universe, Maya, you say you could break out of Maya and master Maya, but here you are participating in the material universe of Maya, and here you are having unique dilemmas and questions and confusions within the material universe. So you're claiming that you mastered Maya, but you're still here. That doesn't make sense. Like majority of the New Age messages, it's just inaccurate. Like, please stop. Because like what really gets me is just like they don't necessarily know what really gets me is they don't necessarily know their they don't necessarily know their they're multiplying confusion on a low-key energy level. They don't necessarily know that. Like there's confusion that's being multiplied because there's a lack of clarity, there's a lack of a particular wholeness of intelligence, and there's a lack of real compatibility and collaboration and cooperation. That's what's really going on. It's the original energy war is clarity versus confusion behind all of the groups, behind all of the creeds, behind all of the behind all the races and species. And I said, it's already been written in a particular neutral way. It's like, are you prolonging confusion? Are you supporting confusion? Are you distributing confusion? Or are you distributing clarity? And that is your own individual ego war, because for whatever reason, we don't want to share clarity because we have our own individual power struggles. You got to do a lot of shadow work if you're going to come on my channel. That's for sure. Because no one wants to hear the pure truth, you know. No one wants to hear the pure, because they're in their own individual biases in a micro compartment of micro Maya on the earth. The material earth is in the material universe. We're in a micro level of Maya, and now as we're in a micro level of Maya, we're claiming all of this shit that we haven't mastered. And as we're claiming all of this shit we haven't mastered, we still find ourselves in our own unique dilemmas and our own unique attributions in how we, like, you know, go for resources. And yet we're still trying to, like, you know, find some type of unique liberation as we're progressing through our lives. So the title of this video could be, what do you call that? There's a unique title I wanted to put. The unique title I wanted to put was just micro free, something of like, you know, I mentioned it throughout the passage of verbalization, and as I mentioned it throughout the passage of verbalization, I still flow. You know, I still like you know, because the whole point of, like, what the quote unquote Vedic lore is saying, end quote, it's to achieve some type of moksha. But what is that moksha? What is that moksha, though? And if we don't necessarily know what that moksha is, then we don't necessarily know how to pursue life, respectively. Let me take a breath. I still feel like I got, like, you know, a little more to say. But yeah, you're gonna have to do a lot of quote unquote shadow work, end quote, for my page, because no one wants to hear that, like, that we're in our own individual, you know, paradox and quote unquote, you know, quote unquote contradictions, end quote, because we want all of this liberty, but we're not willing to do what it takes to get it. That's the point. We want all of this shit, but we're not willing to do, because we have a unique individual ego, and no one wants to hear that shit. And that ego has a unique level of a fallen state. So, oh yeah, the title of this video is "Thoughts Do Not Necessarily Create Your Reality." There it is. There it is, right? Yeah, there it is, right there. Thoughts do not necessarily create your reality. And that being the premise of this little, you know, mini seminar. And the mini seminar premise of thoughts don't necessarily create your reality, but they create your energy condition of what you are. So they kind of do on a micro level. So that's why I said they don't necessarily create it, but they do on a micro level. It's just seeing how the thoughts have a fraction of a contribution to how you evolve and metamorphosize, pretty much. And I'm going to end it right there because I'm thinking of like all the other shit that's already been done. Thank you.